around the year 2003. And that was 2 years after I lost my father to cancer. It was a very hard time for me and my family. I am the oldest in my family. I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and it was a hard time for us. I needed to find a job as an engineer, and it was very stressful because we didn't have a lot of money at that time. Now, what happened is that I was seeking God, and I was struggling because I wanted so desperately to find that job. At one point, my brother, younger brother, comes home and he mentions to me how he started reading the Bible and he found it interesting that there are so many answers for everyday's problems. He said to me, it's crazy how whatever we have in our lives, let's say we have struggles or we're jealous, whatever, well, we will always find answers to any one of these problems in the Bible. And suddenly I was curious, and I said to myself, you know what? I never really looked into the Bible, and I never really searched out whether these things are true. I remember when I was a kid, maybe, that we heard about the Bible, but I never really looked at it when I was an adult. I was 23 years old, but I said, this is a good opportunity for me to start reading. So for the first time, I picked up the Bible and I started reading. I started in Matthew and I started to read about what Jesus did. Went from Matthew to Mark, Luke, and then I got to the Gospel of John. Now, at the beginning of the Gospel of John, I was still struggling with knowing if Jesus Christ was real. I mean, I was reading about him, but at the same time, it was like a story. I wasn't sure whether these things are true. It was like reading any other book, so it was interesting, but I needed more than that. I felt that it's not enough for me to read. It has to be a real thing. I mean, if God is real and he's alive, he can manifest himself. So to me, it had to be more than that. Now, at the same time I was reading the Gospel of John, I was also listening to videos. One of the videos that I listened to mentioned something that was shocking to me and surprising. What they said in the video is that one of the major historical evidence about Jesus' resurrection is the fact that the apostles who lived, who were eyewitnesses, they died for believing that he resurrected. Now, that stayed with me because I knew that some people die for their faith. For example, in Islam, a lot of people die believing in their faith. However, there is a big difference in people, in eyewitnesses, who claim to have seen something and then who die for what they saw. These people, the apostles, they went out and they were persecuted. They were dying because of one event, and this event is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that idea stayed with me. While I was reading the Gospel of John, suddenly when I started to think and remember about the fact that the apostles died for believing he was resurrected, suddenly the idea that Jesus Christ is now real and alive started to change my perspective of how I was reading the Holy Scriptures. When I was reading the Gospel of John, I got to the deep words of Jesus Christ, and he was talking about how the Father and himself are one, how he wants us to be one, and how close it was, that relationship between him and the Father, and how he was praying for us that we become one like him and his Father was one. And suddenly, when I was reading the Gospel of John in my room, I started to feel the presence of God in my room, and suddenly He filled me with the Holy Spirit. And when I looked at the words of Jesus Christ, it's as if they were coming out of the book in like 3D format or something. I don't know if you have watched ever a movie in 3D and suddenly you see things coming at you. It was so weird as an experience that I said something is happening. And I was shocked. And suddenly I felt the presence of God come into my room and fill me from the inside. It's as if it came up just until my neck. It is an experience that I could never explain to people. I believe words will never be enough to explain what it feels like to be revealed the presence of Christ, of Jesus, to be born again. It was an experience like no other experience. I can say to you, brothers, that even though I cannot explain it, I can tell you one thing, that if you want to be revealed the presence of Jesus Christ, and if you want to know that Jesus Christ is real, nobody will ever be able to convince you. It takes that experience where God reveals Himself to you through the Holy Spirit. I can tell you that one thing is important to know, that we were truly born again. And I believe it is the fact that you realize how filthy we are as human beings, how sinful we are, and how holy God is. This is what I mean when I say about Isaiah. When he saw God, he said, "Woe is me, man of unclean lips." He realized how filthy he was. And this is what I felt. I felt that I was so filthy, I was so dirty, full of sin, and that even though I was so sinful, Jesus Christ came and died for me personally to save me from these sins, even though I didn't do anything to deserve it. I can tell you, brothers and sisters, that that day I came out from my room a completely different person. I knew that sin was so dirty in God's eyes, and I knew that I could never be the same after that. Little did I know that that was the start of my walk, and that was a beginning of a journey, and there was the desert coming. This desert made me fall again into willful sin. So even after I got born again, I was not completely freed from sin. That's why I say that this is just the beginning. When we are justified, when we are converted, and when we become born again. And I want to tell you something. I want to tell to the people who didn't have that experience yet. It is the moment that will change your life, and I plead with you to go and seek out Jesus Christ. Don't stop seeking God until you find Jesus Christ, until you have been revealed the reality of Jesus Christ. It is the most important thing that should happen to any Christian. It is the beginning of our walk with Jesus Christ. One thing I will tell you that is very important to become born again, that is to seek Jesus Christ. Seek God with all your heart. Cry out to Him. Spend time with Him. Don't just go about your life forgetting about the eternal things. We have to find the reason why we came into this life, why we're here. And God will answer that. Jesus says, "Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be open." We need to seek God and knock until he answers us. We should never stop seeking until Jesus Christ answers. You know, one time I said to a person that we have to seek God, and he told me that we shouldn't seek because he's the one who chooses us. And this is the fruit of mainstream Christianity. They make you feel as if you don't have to do anything, but we still need to seek God. God still chooses us first because we wouldn't have the desire to seek unless he chose us first. I want to read to you from Acts chapter 17 to talk about what it means to seek, or why we should seek God. So verse 24, God that made the world and all the things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwells not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he gives to all life and breath and all things, and has made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him, and find him, though he be not far away from every one of us. So I wanted to read you the passage. This is Paul speaking in the book of Acts, and he says that God is waiting for us to seek after him until we find him. I'm sure we know that Paul doesn't believe that we can earn our salvation, but it's still something that we need to do, to seek after God and to cry out to him until we are revealed the presence of God, and we are revealed the reality of Jesus Christ and what he did for each one of us personally on the cross. I pray, brothers and sisters, that we seek Jesus and we seek God until we find him. I hope this message answers the brother who asked me how we become born again, how I became born again. And I hope that through this testimony, you can also be revealed the presence of Christ, and you can lead others into that beautiful experience of coming to the realization of the reality of Christ and his sacrifice on the cross. And may God bless you.